The open road is calling, it's got stories to tell. I've got a few of my own flowing from a deeper well. The cherry blossoms blooming, shimmering clouds, pink and white, and I'm leaving the old things behind.
Welcome to the Midlife Capers Podcast. I'm your host, Kara Highsmith. In each episode, we will hear from people, everyday friends and neighbors kinds of people, who have taken on some sort of adventure in midlife. Maybe it's a creative project where they explore a previously hidden talent. It might be pulling up stakes and moving to a new, unexpected location just because. It could be changing the way they show up in the world. The point is, they are doing something that pushes them outside their comfort zones, responding to those internal nudges, allowing themselves and their lives to take a different shape than they imagined. I hope you will find their stories inspiring, perhaps motivating, and keep coming back as we have new conversations. Welcome back to the Midlife Capers Podcast. My guest today is Bryan Currie. He's a longtime family friend and community advocate and fantastic potter and just generally all around wonderful human being. So I am very excited to have him on the podcast today.
You're too kind, Kara. It's really good to be here with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so pleased that you agreed to have a chat with me. I have pretty much started off with everyone just asking the simple question, what did life look like for you before 50? The point of these conversations is to talk with people who are in midlife and who are pretty much all Gen Xers and um, discussing what this phase looks like and what the buildup was, and then the shifts that you've made, the big steps out of your comfort zone that you might have taken, that kind of thing. So,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So what did it look like pre-50? First of all, I love that you're defining midlife as 50 plus. I think I was feeling very midlife even before I rolled into the 50s. So I dig
Well,
that.
I looked it up, and technically, midlife is categorized as mid 40s to early 60s.
Love that.
So,
Yep. Yeah. So I'm fairly new into my 50s. I'll turn 51 in a couple of weeks. So I'm new into the 50 ballpark. And really, what did life look like before versus after? What did that lead up look like? A lot of folks do go through that I'm about to turn 50 kind of angst or stress or identity things kind of happen in that transition. It's totally understandable. That was not my story. I felt completely fine rolling into my 50s. I had bigger issues with some of my other decades, like turning 30 was a thing for me. Then I realized my 30s were a great time. So that kind of knocked the whole decade milestone sort of angst out of the park for me. So rolling into my 50s, I felt good. I've had some professional transitions in midlife that I think are fairly normative for a whole lot of folks. And just because they're normal doesn't mean they're easy. So that thing has been and is currently happening a bit. Um, but I also see that as pretty normal. So I think that's my grounding is that the things that are happening to, with, and around me in my 50s are all, I think, pretty normal.
So what kinds of shifts have you made? I mentioned the pottery earlier. That's
Yeah.
a hobby that you have
Yeah.
picked up in just in the last several years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, and have there been other things like that where as you've kind of started to feel grounded in your adulthood, that you've
Right.
ventured out or anything like that, or
Yeah, for me, those biggest touch points are in my professional life. I am one of us Gen Xers who have touched a couple of different careers in our lives. We start in one place, we explore, we do our thing. Maybe we succeed there, maybe we don't, and then we realize, oh, I want to shift and do another thing. And so I am one of those people. I think one of the things that's probably helped ease my transition is that throughout my career, a lot of what I've done has been working with people through times of transition, whether that was leadership coaching or other kinds of counseling or counseling related work. A lot of what I do is help people, kind of take that bird's eye view of what's going on in their life to figure out what of this is normal, what isn't, what can I shift, what can I not shift, and then how do you navigate within that, which is a really neat thing to be able to do with people, to be disconnected from another person's story, but then just walk with them through it. Um, so as I've been in midlife and gone through my own transitions, I've been able to use some of those same tools to say, where have I been and where do I want to be? What's normal here and what's not? And how can I, when I feel like I'm on the ledge about something, how can I talk myself off the ledge by saying, you know what, Brian, what's happening here? It's unique to you, but it's also, unique to everybody else who's 50 also. Um, Early in my career, I did a whole lot of work with teenagers. I had a master's degree in youth development, so I've done a whole lot of work with kids. And I often joke that I have a master's degree in puberty. So, we,
Yeah.
so I've kind of been in puberty for 50 years at this point. And one of the things that I think I've realized about midlife, like really even starting in my mid 40s, is that this is another kind of puberty for a whole lot of us where you're shifting from like one developmental stage where you kind of felt like you had a whole lot of stuff figured out and you're hitting your stride in some different things. And then your body changed and and all of a sudden your body was doing way different things, and our brains are changing and the way we're thinking about things, both biologically and socially, are shifting maybe. um
There's so
have a
much
different.
about identity and and forming or reshaping identity in these two different stages of life for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm finding that my relationships with people are changing, and that's shifting some of these things. We have parents who are aging in a certain way, and that's shifting who we are, in our own families. You know, if we're in long-term relationships, like that is looking different as we're, thinking about what will it hopefully look like to shift from maybe a working adult to a retired or semi-retired or something. So it's like we're putting our feet, putting our toes in all of these different kinds of water, which can be really exciting, and it is really exciting, but also kind of like puberty. It's this, oh, who am I? Who am I in all of this, and how do I navigate all of these different layers of shifting around me? And it can be a really complicated puzzle.
Well, and you used the word normal a few times about, oh, this is normal, or maybe this isn't normal. Talk a little bit more about how you characterize normal.
What an interesting question. How do I characterize normal? Um, you know, oh, this is about to get really meta, Karen. And like in all of my life, I'm gonna reserve the right to say some things and then completely disagree with them. Uh, just
Yeah,
working it out in the room, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Um, on some level, I think that everything is normal. That whatever is going on with a person at any given time is a normal thing to be going to go on. That sanity comes from realizing that while I am a unique shining star, I'm also just like all of the other unique shining stars. Um, so everything is normal. And then there are many days when I really truly believe that nothing is normal at all, that everything really is unique. So there's a wandering thought pattern. So how do I define
I'll say
normal?
this, I tie that, but, yeah, and what you've said ties into this. This is something that I preach to people all the time when I'm working with them on creative projects, is that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
We have experienced all of it. Every human experience has has happened to somebody along the way. Oh, and I always I just say that the Bible is an anthology of the human condition because you've got an illustration of everything, the do's and the don'ts of all the things that you could possibly experience as a human being there. Um, so you're not going to come up with anything unique and new as a
Mm,
storyteller as far as the themes go and the archetypes of people.
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
where your creativity and ingenuity comes to play is those details, the things that,
Yeah.
um, where something may happen to you in this town versus another, or may happen i- in a subtly different way. You're wearing orange instead of blue. Those details are what make it unique to you, but they're also the things that might make your story resonate in with someone in a way that someone else's story, which is basically the same, didn't resonate. So,
Yeah, that's
if your career was in pipe fitting and you all of a sudden have to change careers, what do you do? um and the person listening to you, their career was in accounting, and so that they may not connect. But if for somebody who has a similar field and has gone a similar path, that's where the value is in continuing to tell stories, even though there's really not any, even though there's all this normal and still not normal, I guess is where I'm getting at.
yeah, I dig that, and that makes me really think about the parallel for me between normal versus not normal and connected versus disconnected. So for me, when I think about this experience in my life is normal, that means for me that I can connect it to someone else or something else that I can be grounded and connected in some kind of a way. Whereas when I'm thinking, for me, this thing happened and it's not normal, for me, that's a feeling of disconnect that I am kind of alone and floating out here, and I don't know where to ground. Um, I don't know where to land. So, like for example, in my family, in the last year, we had a fairly traumatic thing happen. A traumatic death happen in our family that was jarring. Would you use the word jarring? It was a not normal thing to happen in families. I have a good friend who had a similar thing happen in her family, having happy hour with her later on this afternoon. We both recognize that our stories are are very not normal. Like these are not normal things that are happening to families. But because we can connect with each other and find that connection, it normalizes some things and we see commonalities and it's super grounding. So we're able to say within this not normal thing, I'm not nuts because I'm feeling a certain
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Gosh, which is such a midlife skill I think that we're trying to find is how do we find connections between what used to be to what is now to what might be next, and how can we find those through lines that really give us some bit of continuity during all this change?
I agree.
Yeah.
So what types of things are can you talk about that you are shifting, and where what you're looking at down the road, or that falls ahead of you?
Would you mind saying that one more time?
Yeah. What types of things are you looking at, that are in the road that falls ahead of you, and that whether it's
Mhm.
changing careers or uh, changing how you are showing up in the world or whatever
Yeah,
category those
yeah.
fall into.
What are the through lines that I'm looking at?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, what am I looking at? Professionally, I am looking at what are the things that I did early in my career that I really enjoyed that may have fallen off of the map a little bit during mid-career that I
Mhm.
really wanna tap back into and reaccess some of those strengths, um, which as we're thinking about midlife, I think that's a very normal thing that a lot of us are doing. You know, a lot of us start our careers in one place and then we grow and grow and realize, oh, we may have grown out of a piece of work that we were really enjoying. We may have gotten promoted out of a piece of work that we really enjoyed. And maybe it's time to tap back into that because there was some real gold in that. And we're able to come back with new skills, that we've gained that could be applied in that work. Um, and that's really exciting, and that's work that I get to coach leaders in, like, I do a lot of coaching in the nonprofit world in particular, and I get to coach leaders in that, and I find me coaching myself in that a bit too, which is fun. So I am personally thinking about, how to re-access some of those professional skills, do those things. Um, Personally and creatively, you mentioned that I'm a potter, which is really good emotional space for me. Um, I spent about the last year in what I was calling just my play phase. So I went through a whole stage with my pottery where I really felt like I wanted and needed and need is such a tricky word, but for
Yeah.
whatever reason, like I needed
Yeah.
to crank out a bunch of work. Like I felt obligated for some reason to crank out a bunch of work so I could take it out into the world and sell it and do this thing. Pottery is not my job. Like it doesn't pay the bills. It's not trying to pay the bills. It doesn't need to pay the bills. And yet I put all of this expectation on it saying, hey, I need to do this. And as a result, my hobby became drudgery and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And then I had this, "You're too old for this. Like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, this was supposed to be fun." So, for the last, like, I said it was gonna be for a year, now it's been closer to a year and a half or 2, but I had my year of play where I took selling things off the table and just when I was in my studio, I was playing. I'm just making stuff that I wanna make. It can succeed, it can fail, it can be beautiful, it can be crap. It doesn't matter because it's just play. Oh, and Kara, like, like, it gave me my breath back, you know what I mean? Like, I was enjoying my craft again. Um, and so I'm using that energy, and now I've got new perspective, and I'm gonna shift out of play and back into let's put a body of work together again to take to craft fairs and do those things, but Brian, let's have learned from some experience and not put too much expectation on it and not turn this into your job because it's not your job.
What and what do you? How much of that do you think is applicable to most people in midlife in a lot of areas of their experience?
Oh,
Mm.
can I turn that question on you? Where do you think that's applicable?
I honestly, I think it could be applicable in just about any area because, like, you were talking about career and how a lot of times as we advance, we end up losing access to something early on in our careers that we really enjoyed, a thing that maybe got us excited about being a part of this field or this experience in the first place. And I think that a lot of times the reason we lose access to that or forget that that's why we got into that in the first place is because we lose the joy and the
Uh,
playfulness around and it becomes drudgery and it becomes work. And so it's a I think that you don't have to completely overhaul your career if you can tap back into that thing that brings you joy about it. Uh, I think the same thing is true in relationships that, because we all know the cliches of the men who leave their marriages and pick up a second trophy wife because they get bored.
Bored.
It becomes drudgery, or they forget about where the
Yeah.
joy is in that brought you two together in the first place. I mean, I really think that it happens across all of the facets of our lives as we live. And maybe midlife is the time that we have the opportunity to
Yeah.
get these things again and say, okay, I've at least lived long enough that the the learning curve has flattened. So maybe I can reassess what I picked up or dropped along that learning curve and see how again.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think about it's reaccessing play. Career-wise, early in your career, you're doing new and exciting things, and it feels and you're making money, and it feels exciting, and then it becomes drudgery, and you get to midlife, and maybe you're trying to reaccess some play, like you're reaccessing joy. Joy is word you used, joy in your work. Which as you were talking, it made me think about the other midlife cliche is for men, especially, is you hit your midlife crisis. At least back in the '80s, the cliche was, and you bought a red convertible, and you
You're in
did that.
yeah.
Yeah, which is about trying to
Yeah.
reaccess play.
Yeah.
Like everything's become
Absolutely.
drudgery, and how do I
Yeah.
tap back into just fun? Like, and that can come out sideways with, so you pick up trophy wife, you
Mhm.
pick up a car you don't need or whatever, or it can become something really powerful, and you like redefine your relationship with your spouse, and you think through what collectively makes us happy, and let's invest in those things. We
Yeah.
do that at my house. Like, what collectively makes us happy? Let's do the things that makes us collectively happy.
Well, I know you've shared on social media your your annual Christmas try some new elaborate dessert thing, and you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
have done some really great fun travel stuff. So, it
yeah.
sounds like you're definitely modeling that part in your relationship. So, I love to see that.
We do our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so maybe midlife is about it's an opportunity. Oh gosh, this is about to sound so cliche. So so preachy something, but like it really is an opportunity to tap back into what makes us happy because you you said something really great about the learning curve gets flattened at midlife. Kara, I'm not sure I agree with that,
Okay.
but I like what it brings up. Like I don't know that I feel like my learning curve has gotten flattened. I think for me it's been a little bit the opposite of I've realized how much I really don't know about most
Oh,
things.
no, I would absolutely agree with you that when I say the learning curve, I mean as far as like the things that are rote and routine in our lives, like with the
Mm,
job, our learning curve is flattened on our job. Our learning curve on how to have a home life and be a spouse or whatever flattens. But then,
we've crossed those big milestones.
yeah, but when that happens, that creates the opportunity to look back and say, you know, I don't think I have anything left to learn about my spouse, but do I really? I mean, is this the opportunity to look back? Now that that I don't think I have still this uphill climb to get where I need to be.
Mm,
Uh, can I look back and say, what don't I know?
mhm.
And then have a new approach to figuring out those things.
Yeah, and can I not be threatened by the fact that there are still things I don't know? can I take the pressure off of I am 50, almost 51 years old. I am supposed to have a whole bunch of things figured out.
Yeah.
And it's also okay that there's a whole lot that I don't have figured out, or that
Yeah.
a lot of the things I thought I had figured out, I can refigure them out. Like, I'm not stuck in anything. I can refigure things out.
Well, and it's like, the slogans in recovery spaces where one of the things they talk about is all the shoulds and, how you shouldn't should all over
Mm,
yourself. And
mhm,
but we do in every aspect. I I did a blog not that long ago about um the expectations and the pressure of what we should be doing, what we should know, and what we should be able to produce, and all that. And when I was in, when I went back to school after my son started kindergarten to finish my degrees, I was 30 going into classrooms with kids who were in kindergarten when I graduated from high school,
right.
and I when I finished my degree and I went into the workforce, I was going in entry level with people who were minimum 10 years younger. And I should all over myself with that. And that was hard. It's something that when we allow ourselves to fall under the pressure of all of those societal expectations, that I think that is part of what may rob us of the joy of the experiences that we're supposed to be having. Or again, this should, but the experiences that we're trying to have, um, we lose we lose the joy because of, well, I should, I, I should have be making this much money so I can get the house, so I can have the kids, and all of those kinds of
Mm,
things, and it's just, um, I think midlife may be when we're at the point to where we've either done those things or we haven't.
mhm.
And now it's time to look at what can I do instead.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do quite a bit of kind of reading and thinking and whatnot about Taoism, and, there's a verse would be the word, but, not in the kind of biblical sense. Like, there's a passage, there's a
Uh-huh.
phrase in
There you go.
the kind of Taoist canon, um, that's something along the lines of, tell yourself that this thing has no name. So when you see a thing or think about a thing, tell yourself this thing has no name. It is neither good nor bad. We don't rank it as better than something or worse than something. It is just its own thing in the world. And like that idea of things, of not labeling things as good or bad is really hard for me. It's also been increasingly valuable during this period in my life. It helps me not should myself, because should is all about it would be good if this thing happened, or I would be good if I could do this thing. Well, what if good and bad aren't the point? What if it's just I am who I am and this is what it is and good or bad? It just kind of is. I'm a person in this classroom with these other people
Yeah.
and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think, looking at everything as an opportunity for just an experience,
Mm,
and even if and this is something that I've found in every conversation I've had, because one of the things I ask is there anything you would change about your journey to this point? Um, and nearly everyone says, I think even if I could make this thing or that not happen, or make this thing or that easier, I probably wouldn't, because it all contributes to who I am now. And I don't really want to change that,
mm,
because where I am now, I have knowledge, I have wisdom, I have battle scars that carry precious memories or whatever it is, and I don't wanna change those things. So I think that's kind of all that common thread across everyone is I guess, kind of a Taoist sort of, people, whether they're intentional about it or not, maybe they're accidental Taoists, but, that it's, this, the idea that there's nothing if you undid any of it, there might be a piece that you didn't get to have at this stage that matters to you,
Love that.
it's yeah.
Yeah, love that. I would yeah, I would echo a whole lot of that. I would feel very much that way.
Well, let's see, what else can we talk about? Because we we have a little time left.
Yeah,
Um, and I can stitch and I can, you know,
sure.
add stuff, but, is there anything else that has come up for you in the process of kinda talking about this stuff?
Oh, that's a good open question. What else has come up for me? When you were just talking about would you change anything, like in the story that has gotten you here so far. I've just finished I just finished a book that I would recommend. I enjoyed it a ton. It's a novel called The Orphan Master's Son. And before I recommend it, I should remember the author's name, and I don't. But it was really, really clever, really great book. Um, and there was this little passage in the book that I've been chewing on for a couple of weeks where, like, this character, it's a it's a journey story. Like, it's tracking with this person as he goes through several iterations of his life. Like, he becomes several people kind of in the course of his life, as do most of us. And at one point, he's, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who might read it, but like he's experiencing this thing that in the moment he's experiencing as a really hard thing that's happening. And he really thinks it's going to shift his story. And then he realizes that he says there are kind of two sorts of things that go on in a person's life, two sorts of events. Some of them are happenings, um, and happenings are just they're the things that happen to you, but they don't actually change the course of anything
Mhm.
for you. And then what is the word he uses for the other one? And then there are the engagements, the things that when they happen, like they shift the actual course of your life. And there are a whole lot of times where you think something is happening and it's really like this engagement that's shifting like the way you do your life or your world. And then you look back and you realize, oh, that was just a happening. Like that wasn't even all that important.
Yeah.
And like I've been thinking about that for a couple of weeks. And like I told you, I have a birthday right around the corner. And so I've been kind of thinking through like all these things that happened in my life that in the moment I thought, oh, this is such a big deal. Like this is changing the course. This decision I'm making is so important and it's changing the course of things. Or this thing that's happening to me or around me is so important.
Mhm.
And now I look back and think, God, you just think a lot of yourself. Like, those things really weren't that big a deal. Just kind of relax and go with it. Like,
Do you have
do you
an
have any
example that you can share of something like that? Do
say that again?
you have an example of something you can share like that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, okay, so I went to college with your brother. Like, your brother and I were roommates in college, and there were so many things that happened in college that I thought were just life-changing, and we were doing so many important things, like, will I pledge a fraternity or not? And that was so heavy and fraught, and it didn't matter. And, what major am I gonna choose, and what minor am I gonna choose, and all of this, and that was so weighty because it was gonna determine the course of my whole life,
Mhm.
and it wasn't. And dating decisions were totally that way, like, how heavy and important is this or that relationship? and most of them were influential, but not necessarily critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Is any of that real for you?
Yeah, and honestly, I think, we were talking earlier about the formation of identity that happens in adolescence and early college, and then the reshaping of identity that happens in midlife. And, we may have other identity, uh, rejiggerings as we go along through life, but these seem to be like the really consequential ones, or phases where that happens. And and yeah, I mean, when we're young, and we think that everything is so important and everything is meaningful, or um that, life altering in some way, everything from the way we dress to the types of music we listen to. And I look back at things I wrote back then versus things I write now, and I'm just like, oh,
Oh,
I
those old
just
journals are
thought
just
so
so
much.
cringy.
I thought so much of myself back then. And I look back now, and I try to have compassion for her,
Yeah,
because,
right.
she was trying to find her voice, and I admire and honor that. But at the same time, yeah, it's just, you do realize, and I think that that comes from everything in the world being so fresh. And it's all part of that learning curve. It's that steep climb up, and um you're experiencing those things for the first time. And then when we reach this stage, we're looking back at all of that stuff, and it's like, oh, I remember when that happened. And yeah, that that boy I dated, for 3 weeks one summer, I just thought he was going to be my forever person. And then there were 17 other my forever persons that came in the 3 years that followed, or whatever it may be, but it's just, but I think that's it. It's that innocence and freshness that
Mm,
is part of what makes us take things so seriously and view them that way. And then we reach this stage and kinda long for that maybe.
yeah, totally. Because you don't know what's on the other side of the hill, so
Yeah,
you don't know what's important or what's not. Like, you haven't done those relationships, so you assume this is going to
yeah,
be really important because you don't know that there are
yeah.
gonna be 20 more. And the same thing with, any number of things, right? Like jobs
But
or
but
hobbies
it
or any
but
number of
I
things.
think the thing is, at this stage, we're at the point where we've done all of that, and now we still don't know what lies ahead.
Mm,
It's it's different stuff. I mean, as we are hitting this midlife stage, careers are winding down. Relationships are running their course. The children are leaving the nest, and and so all the roles that we have fulfilled from the time we started trying to figure out what role we were going to have, to now, all of those things are shifting. So many of my peers are losing their parents, and that identity shift alone is massive, because so often the transition of that is that you go from being the child to the caregiver, and then you lose them, and now you are the matriarch or the patriarch in the family. And it's the identity shift that happens there is so big.
huge.
And and that's why a lot of these questions, and even if you haven't lost your parents, they are at least aging to where they don't fulfill that role for your family anymore, and you're stepping into that role. And it's I think that's the
Right.
identity shifts are pivotal at both of these stages.
Yeah, I agree, I agree, and so much of it is so much of it is about grief. And you were centering that around, parents and death. But grief is about
Mhm.
so many things other than just dying. And like do I want to say this out loud? But we are in a stage of our life where there's just a lot of grief around us. Like becoming an empty nester is you're grieving the family that you were when the kids were at home
Yeah.
so that you can accept what it's gonna be like next. Or retirement is you're grieving this career where you found a whole lot of identity so that you can accept what it's gonna mean to be like this next version of you. Obviously there's the parent stuff, and that's the puberty of it all. Like puberty is also about about grief because you're grieving that you were a kid who didn't have to worry about anything, and now
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
all the big important things that you're having to wrestle with.
The adulting.
All all the adulting and you smell funny all at the same time. It's awful,
Right, right.
which is also midlife, I'll own it.
A different way, yeah.
My body's doing weird stuff again.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah, and you're right, you go through all these changes in your body in puberty, and then when you hit midlife and all of a sudden the warranties have run out and things start breaking down, and yeah, your relationship with your body is once again very nebulous and, um, confusing, sure.
It is, and it's so cliche. I mean, just like a stinky teenager is
Yeah,
cliche, but I mean,
but it's a
you
cliche.
sneeze and you throw out
It's
your
for a
back. It's
reason.
a cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting on the couch and put my arm up around my husband, and I heard something pop, and for the next year and a half, I had a frozen shoulder. All I did was that motion. My body did
Yeah,
not. Like,
yeah.
we've been buddies for a long time. What?
Yeah, no,
We
I get it, I get
we
it,
shouldn't
yeah.
have this relationship with each other.
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird and winding road, and, that and that's why I'm wanting to have conversations like this with people to kind of unpack what midlife is and how we get through it, because as we said before, it's not like we're the first ones to ever go through midlife, but, I when I was talking with my friend Lainey, she used the term feral, to describe the Gen Xers, and really it's the Gen Xers who are going through midlife right now. And we do have a very unique path that we have taken to
Huh,
adulthood
uh-huh.
and to midlife. And so I just, I'm loving having these conversations to dig down deep into what people are feeling and experiencing and offer some kind of insight or hope or whatever to our peers as they wade into these murky waters.
Mm, we are feral.
We are. I remember,
We are. I like
we
that.
had well, we went to the daycare until I was in 6th grade. And then, John's 4.5 years younger than I am, and so when I hit 7th grade, I got to go stay home, or go home after school by myself and wait until
Thank
everybody
you.
else got home later on. So I had several hours, and, but I know that there were others who were total latchkey kids younger than I was, um, and that just was a totally different thing, and we'd mom and dad would send us out, "Go play." And, you roam the neighborhood until the streetlights come on, and, that was your signal to come home. And or mom might stand on the porch and yell, "Dinner," and you come in for that, and then you go back out until the streetlights come on. And
Yeah, and you
they
were
had no clue where we actually were. I mean, I had a general idea,
and
you
I was
know
doing fool stupid things.
yeah. And, I've seen those memes where it's like, well, we survived A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z, and we're
Yeah.
still here. So
We're still here and we're mostly fine.
yeah, we're
We
mostly fine.
we recovered from at least most of the bad decisions we
Yeah.
made.
Maybe that's our, like, we should sell T-shirts. Gen Xers. We're still here and we're mostly fine.
Right?
Exactly.
If we're still here, we're
Yeah.
mostly fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there you go.
Oh,
That's a better, that's a good amendment to it. But, um,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Bryan, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's just always a great conversation with you, but I really appreciate you sharing and being open about the stuff you've been navigating and what you've observed and the people you've worked with.
No, for sure, Kara. Thanks for asking me to have a conversation. I dug it.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's not make it so long between them this time.
I like it. I like
Okay.
it a lot.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna do something new. I'm gonna turn these wheels into wings, flying through the endless blue, finding my own way, drinking from new springs, from the mountains high to the valleys below.